So welcome guys again to video number 2 for our starting lesson, and just as a recap of what I said in the previous video, importantly so that we'll be doing this in formats of pre-recorded videos, and of course I'll be sending the PDFs as supplementary material, and if you need to contact me, I've also given you the contacts for that. Now in this video I'll just be introducing only one thing or two things as it were. So I'll just be giving you the course outline. The course outline, again, don't forget to contact your class rep for the PDF documents per module. It will depend, not all modules will be accompanied with PDFs, but for most of the modules that we'll be covering, I'll be giving you PDFs to support this for your own personal supplementary reading. Now, two things. The first one, I'll be dealing with the course outline, and the second one, I'll just be introducing the definition. I'll be giving you the definition of key terms. Now, when we'll be talking about the course outline, it is basically broken down into modules. And within major modules, there will be sub-modules or sub-modules, depending on the English that you are taught. Now, each module, I think I need a better word. Anyway, touche. Let's start. For the course outline, module 1 that we'll be talking about will include the definition of terms. And under 8, we'll be talking about the role of procurement in organizations. Another thing we'll be looking at are the objectives of procurement for any given organization. Now, after we've done that, module 2 will be introducing the procurement or purchasing process. Now, this will be the most lengthy module because under it you have sub-modules that are each process. Okay, let me put it this way. For the process, that's the main module. Now, under it, there will be lessons for each step. In other words, module 1 will be covering step 1, module 2 will be covering step 2, which has been expounded some more. Don't worry about this, I'll be taking you through it. Now we'll be talking about module 2, that will be procurement process. In module 3 we are looking at the purchasing decisions, and in purchasing decisions we are talking about the make or buy decisions that firms undertake. So we'll be talking about insourcing and outsourcing. Now this is again a very wide module, but I'll try as much as possible to keep it within its limits. That's insourcing and outsourcing. Another module will be module 4, will be sources of supply. And in this section we'll be dealing with some of the key issues. And please, okay, never mind. Sources of supply. That's another module. Then you have another module here that will be talking about global sourcing. Global sourcing, and this is again a wider module, but I'll try as much as possible to cover it within good time. Then you have pricing and costing. Pricing and costing of the same. Again, this will be module 6. Then you have module 7. We'll be talking about supplier relationship management. Again, another very wide module, but we'll cover it under that, relationship management. Then you have managing quality. It's an important aspect of the principles of procurement unit. Then you have another module that will be introducing technology in procurement, technology and procurement. Then you have module 10. We will be talking about strategy and procurement, strategy and procurement. And in the last module, we'll be addressing issues that arise in procurement. For example, you have public procurement, you have private systems of procurement, all those things, all those issues that arise in procurement, we'll be handling them here. So, for now, I just want you to remember something very important. In total, we have roughly about 10 modules, and every video that I'll be talking about will be taking us through these key things. Now, for our references under this unit, I would recommend any book by Peter Bailey. That's a very good source. I only recommend one book, not to overwhelm students. So any book that you can find on procurement by Peter Bailey will be able to cover the basics of procurement in a very good way. I highly recommend that. Now, you can find these books in our library. For those of you who are within vicinity, Nairobi Metropolitan, you can find those books within our library. Again, if you're outside our campus and they allow you in our campus satellite campus libraries, you can find this book there. It's among the most highly sought book in our library. Now, let us begin with our class today, and I will only introduce this lesson by talking about the definition of key terms. And in this section, I'll be talking about the following terms. The first one is procurement as a terminology. The second one is purchasing as a terminology. You have the third one, supplies management as a term. Then you have supply chain management. Now, I want you to think about this way. Why is it that you chose supply chain management and not the course which is procurement and contracting? Is it that procurement and contracting is an inferior course depending when compared to supply chain management? That is not the case. But if I were to show the distinction between these two, I want you to think of it in terms of scale. Now, on one hand, we have a macro function or a macro process, and on the other hand, we have a micro process, which is very important for operationalizing a given function. And this is what I mean by that. If I was to give this in terms of scale, it would look something like this. You have purchasing in here, you have procurement in here, you have supplies management in here, then you have supply chain management. So in terms of scale of coverage, you're looking at supply chain as a wider function as compared to procurement. Now, there are some authors that will use purchasing and procurement synonymously, but there are some other authors that will say these are not one and the same thing. Purchasing to them refers to the micro operational aspect of bringing goods within an organization. That is what purchasing refers to them. So when I contact supply and I tell them I want item X, Y, Z, what I am doing here is purchasing, because it is an act, a one-off act of providing information on one hand and getting the good on the other end. A very simple transaction, as it were. Now, procurement, on the other hand, is somewhat complex, because what it refers to is the art of bringing the right item in the organization at the right price, in the right quantity and quality, and at the right time and place. So it is somewhat wider than a transactional process. So it is covering what items are we buying, can we get a competitive price for those items, how much do we need to buy? And in this aspect, you are talking about matching supply and demand, which we shall be talking about in this unit. Under quality here, you are talking about making sure the goods are fit for use to the end user. In under time, we are talking about lead time management, and lead time as a terminology refers to the time between when I ordered and when I received the item. I ordered on day 1, the item came after 7 days. Therefore, our lead time is 7 days. The longer the lead time, the more you are likely to have customer dissatisfaction. So, lead time management again is a very important aspect. Then, place is another aspect. Where are the goods being needed? Now, this is procurement. This is basically what people will say refers to procurement. Again, you can see the distinction between procurement and purchasing. Now, when you go to supplies, as it were, it refers to a wider aspect that will be covering issues of warehousing, will be covering issues of production, will be covering issues that have to do with managing the whole supply system, but within the organization. Don't forget that, within the organization. So that is supplies management. But supply chain management is somewhat wider because it assumes that this is my organization XYZ. On the back end, you have supplier 1, you have supplier 2, you have supplier 3. On the front end, you have our distributor, you have our retailer, then you get the goods to the customer. When we are saying we are managing the supply chain, we are managing this whole system over here. There are some organizations that have very long systems, and there are other organizations that have very short systems. The difference lies in the integration. For example, there are some farms that decide will not have distributors and retailers, so they only have the farm and the customer. Others say they will be their own supplier, so they are insourcing their items. Again, a very short supply chain that would look something like this. Now, others like Toyota, for example, would say, let us not be our own supplier. Let us just produce the goods and give them to the distributor who gives it to the retailer who gives it to the customer. Again, we'll be looking at the various functions over here. So, the art of managing the internal functions in conjunction with this section here is what we call, let me change the color. This section here is what we call our backward section, and this here is what you call our forward section of the supply chain. When we are saying you are managing your supply chain, this is what you are looking at. When we say you are managing your procurement function, this is what you are looking at. When we say you are managing your purchasing function, this here is what we are looking at. So I want you to think of it in terms of skill. Not that one is more important than the other, but depending on the unique circumstances of the organization, there may be cases where it demands that we look at our purchasing function, procurement function, supplies function, and supply chain management function as one. For example, multi-global firms would do that. So, when we say you are a procurement professional, think of it this way. When you say you're a supply chain manager, think of it this way. But not to say that one is more important than the other. There's some that say, when I was joining, I joined because of this. And I digress. But anyway, I hope you get the difference between the three terms that we'll be talking about from the units, the lessons that will be coming: procurement, purchasing, supplies, and supply chain management. So I'll be forwarding the PDFs for this lesson, but again, contact your class rep as I trickle down more videos of this same nature. If you feel there's something about the videos that need to be improved, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much.